By the summer of 1943, World War II had already become a nightmare beyond imagination. Entire cities were destroyed, millions were dead, and on the Eastern Front, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union were locked in a war so brutal that soldiers sometimes measured survival in hours instead of days. But even among all the horror of World War II, one battle stood out for its sheer scale and destruction: the Battle of Kursk. And the terrifying reality is that it was far worse than most people realize. After the catastrophic German defeat at Stalingrad, Adolf Hitler desperately needed a major victory. Germany had lost massive numbers of soldiers, tanks, and supplies during the brutal Soviet winter campaign. Morale was collapsing, and for the first time, many German commanders realized the war might actually be unwinnable. Hitler refused to accept that. Instead, he planned a huge offensive near the Soviet city of Kursk, where Soviet lines created a giant bulge in the front. The plan was simple: attack from both north and south, trap enormous Soviet forces inside the pocket, and destroy them. On paper, it sounded like Germany's chance to regain momentum. In reality, it became one of the bloodiest disasters of the entire war. The Soviets already knew the attack was coming. Through intelligence networks, intercepted information, and careful observation, Soviet commanders realized Germany was preparing something massive. Instead of launching their own attack first, they did something different. They prepared for hell. Across the Kursk region, Soviet forces built layer after layer of defenses. Trenches stretched for thousands of miles. Minefields covered huge areas. Anti-tank guns were hidden everywhere. Entire villages became fortified strongholds. By the time Germany launched the offensive in July 1943, Soviet defenses were unlike anything the Nazis had faced before. And then the fighting began. The scale was almost impossible to comprehend. Nearly 2 million soldiers became involved in the battle. Thousands of tanks, aircraft, and artillery pieces turned the battlefield into chaos. Explosions shook the ground constantly. Smoke filled the sky for miles. Some soldiers later described the battlefield as looking like the end of the world. German forces initially pushed forward, but every kilometer came at an enormous cost. Tanks hit hidden mines. Soviet artillery ripped through advancing formations. Infantry units were caught in relentless gunfire. Entire sections of land became graveyards of burning vehicles and bodies. And then came the clash near Prokhorovka, one of the most famous and chaotic tank battles in history. Hundreds of Soviet and German tanks collided at close range in massive confusion. Dust, smoke, fire, and explosions made visibility terrible. In some cases, tanks fought almost point-blank because crews could barely see farther ahead. The violence became so intense that some tank crews reportedly rammed enemy vehicles directly after running out of ammunition or losing control in the chaos. This wasn't clean mechanized warfare. It was industrial slaughter. And while Germany had some of the most feared tanks in the world, including the Tiger tank, the Soviets had something else: numbers. The Red Army kept throwing fresh troops, tanks, and reserves into the battle. Every German loss became harder to replace, while Soviet production continued growing rapidly behind the front lines. That's what made Kursk so devastating for Germany. It wasn't just a failed offensive. It permanently destroyed Germany's ability to regain the initiative on the Eastern Front. After Kursk, the Soviet Union increasingly pushed westward, while German forces struggled to recover. Hitler's army never fully regained the strength it had before the battle. And the human cost was horrifying. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers were killed, wounded, or missing during the fighting. Entire villages vanished under artillery fire. Fields became covered with destroyed tanks and corpses. Survivors carried psychological scars for the rest of their lives. But perhaps the darkest part of Kursk is how modern it felt. This wasn't just soldiers fighting with rifles in trenches anymore. It was machines, mass production, industrial firepower, and human lives being consumed on a scale the world had never seen before. The Battle of Kursk wasn't simply another wee battle. It was a warning of what total war truly looked like. And for the men trapped inside it, survival often came down to pure luck.